Mordecai is from Borderlands 1. Yeah,
It
he's
really
from
it.
Borderlands.
There's part of me that thinks it's cruel starting the stream before telling anyone, but I like these random sentences.
You just get more of me talking about Borderlands. I don't see
Yeah.
a problem with this. What do you mean we're supposed to be talking about Project Red?
We spend half these streams talking about something else anyway. Anyway, dice. No. Um. Hi. Hello. And
Hi.
hi. Hi. We're here. There's three of us, but Ragdoll's muted.
Yeah.
Lewis is elsewhere.
I
Christy has
didn't
migraine.
realize that was still muted. That was an oopsie
Oh.
on my part.
Hello. Sorry if we were talking over you while you were muted.
No, I was mostly just fiddling around with some stuff on my computer.
Mm.
Fair enough.
Chrome has annoyed me for the last time, so I'm switching some things up.
Ooh. Exciting.
Yeah. Exciting.
Yes. Welcome to the stream. I was trying to come up with an adjective, and it's very hot today. Welcome to the very hot stream, and that is literal, not metaphorical.
It's also because Chris is just very hot.
Yes. Literally, not metaphorically.
Anyway.
Anyway. Somebody joined called Super 8, and that made me think of Super Strikers. Anyway, a show I have not seen.
But... Yeah, I'm surprised it made you think of that, considering you don't know that show.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you don't know a show doesn't mean you can't think of a show.
Yeah.
Like, there's tons of things out there where it's like, I only know this by osmosis, so...
Yeah, okay, but still.
Like somebody I was watching a thing, somebody mentioned Trails of Cold Steel the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, exciting. And then I realized I don't actually know anything about that. I just know that Kira really likes it, and thus as I am now excited as a consequence.
Yay. We love infecting our friends with stuff we like.
It happens. Yay. It's Via. Boy howdy, have we got a lot to show off this week? The answer's no. That was not a rhetorical statement. Yeah. I don't think we've done anything. Ragdoll's got some nice references from the internet, like an old dilapidated house and a wizard with an orb that's loading.
You know, classic wizard stuff.
I say it's nothing.
It just made me laugh, especially since the comment on it was, the installation wizard.
There's probably an installation wizard. Yes, I say there's nothing to show off. This is assuming you have seen Chibi's stream. From earlier this week. Yes, it's not a new week. Well, it depends on how you count weeks. But there are some robot friends. What were made on a stream by Chib.
Yes.
Here they are. They're definitely friends. They're not enemies, even though they're enemies.
They are enemies, but also they're friends. Yeah. They're each other's friends, not yours. That's
yes.
The real thing.
So you can feel bad while attacking them.
Yeah.
You're breaking up a, book club or something. And I think I'm right in saying that is it.
Kira said something about a fake idea she had.
Yes, so Kiro also said that, because Kiro was given monsters to make in the harbour city, which I found tricky, because it's supposed to be a relatively safe place.
Mm-hmm.
But Kiro's idea was to have a siren or a sort of anglerfish sort of thing, that lives in the abyss but hunts in the harbour, or haunts the harbour, sorry. Luring people to their deaths. Haunt.
Yeah, I figured with the harbor, it's probably less vampire, where wherever you go, there's going to be someone trying to kick your ass, and more most of the place is fine. It's just little areas where you go down and it's like, oh, get this thing out of the sewers. Oh no, there's rats.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly just like this person has a rat problem and you now have to fight our infinitely scaling rats. Or it's just, here's some guy, he's trying to
Yeah.
beat your ass now.
Occasional back
And of
alley
course the
brawl.
mafia.
Yeah, so that was that. I, alas, have not drawn much, given that I've been trying to rest my hand.
I mean, that's
Um,
fair.
I
Have you
discovered.
thought of anything?
I've been thinking of a few things. I've generally been thinking more of ideas for the sort of overall scheme,
Mm-hmm.
rather than because I was given the Golden City.
Yeah.
And again, I couldn't really think of any sort of like interesting ideas for like a generic enemy. It would just be like a character.
I mean, like, I imagine, like, the more, like, generic enemies you fight are just, people in armor. That's
Yeah.
what they look like.
I did like the idea of like I can't remember precisely what the law was originally of I think Lewis had this idea that the what were they called, the ones that had just like scrap armor, just whatever they could salvage, what were they called?
um, I he had a name for them. I don't remember what he called.
Let me have a look in the gallery, for it should be in there. Not a lot to update this week. Inhabitants of the Golden City. Yes, splinters.
Yeah.
Nicknamed splinters for how insignificant their place is and easy to shatter they are if ever it came to a fight with another. Yeah, so annoyingly my brain also came up with that name for something else. That's why I wanted to
It's
check.
almost as if it's a good idea.
It's, yeah. But I like this idea of like characters whose armor is like cracking in a certain sense, because I think we sort of talked a little bit about Volric, of like something to do with Volric's personality is just whatever they put on it starts to crack, it starts to break up. But I like this idea that that's maybe not an explicitly Volric trait, and that maybe there are just certain enemies whose armor just sort of rejects them almost, and they're just sort of like desperate in the hunt for more, something to replace it, and they just attack anything that has armor.
It could
So you just
be
have these.
because Fulric is like, bad guy amongst bad guys. That is
Yeah.
Fulric, right? The awful person. Or am I misremembering that?
No, yeah.
But it could be like because they are like quote unquote spirits who haven't like really moved on and just, decided, hey, we are still here, we're gonna live again, even though we're not alive. Because that's totally fine and normal and healthy. So
Yep.
imagine like there are probably some that are just very, very bad, and it's like the classic, things start behaving weird if like a bad soul, inhabited something like that. What I'm saying is evil energy makes armor crack. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Evil energy. So yeah, that was the idea I had. Was just sort of extending this notion of, it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing as well, because if you survive by virtue of being contained in the armor and your armor breaks because you're evil, then you're going to be more likely to do evil things to get more armor, which makes you more evil, which makes things break more, and it's just bad. It's a bad
Yeah.
combination of things.
I mean, it starts off with you already evil, but it becomes this like, cycle of just becoming worse, and eventually you end up like Fulric.
Yeah, other than that.
Ragdoll got anything?
I mean, not really. Most of the stuff I designed is just sort of not big enemies, but little enemies. Because, I
that's
mean, yes, it's nice to have, like, oh, we've got, like, big things running around. And like with the barrier board, where it's like, oh no, this is going to be a bit of a trial. And then last
mhm.
week it's like, well, what can we design here? I don't know, a bird that's gonna steal your lunch.
I mean, yeah. Listen, an enemy is an enemy.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, every game needs a couple of enemies where it's just kind of like, this isn't dangerous, it's just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, we are developing, as it were, action RPG. So there's most enemies are like that, basically. Hey, miss! Oh, this happy couple. They're great. They're just having a lovely time chatting at the dock.
Yeah, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. uh,
Look, what goes on between an angler and the
An angler and an angler?
yeah, an angler. What goes on between two anglers is their business. How you doing, miss? You right?
that's true, I guess.
I'm assuming Kiro had something more less silly in mind, but this is just what came to mind.
I mean, Kira said, like, it depends on how, like, Jarko wanna go with it, but...
I also like this idea. I also like the idea that you fight this thing, but you actually just fight the lure, because like the angler is like so invested in pretending to be a person that they would fight you as the lure, despite the fact that they're a massive monster who could just easily eat you.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
They're playing the part. They get engrossed. They're all good, just munching dinner here to hang as you doodle.
They're an
Yay!
actor.
Their method.
I mean, it also sort of explains why it keeps coming back. It just grows a new angler.
True. That was one of the sort of more general ideas I had for this is this idea of like, well, if something's up with life and death and all that, maybe that explains why things respawn.
Yeah.
You know, enemies keep coming back because there's no more room in the death admin.
Yeah, that's logbooks are filled up.
It's not a matter of like you are being resurrected. It's just a matter of like you keep trying to die, but it can't go through. It's like trying to send an email. It bounces back.
Yeah.
You know, this email does not exist. This address does not exist. Return to sender.
I mean, yeah, that also feels in line with what we talked about. Like, I don't know when we talked about that. I don't know Ragdoll was there, if Ragdoll was there, but when we talked about, like, the player character isn't, like, really special. This happened to others, and, like, the player character is just the one that finished it.
Yeah.
Whatever
Potentially.
the mission is.
And because I sort of like the idea at the end of I think it's Dark Souls 1, where you can make the choice of like end this cycle, or just perpetuate it more. I sort of like the idea that at the end of this you can either do the thing that life and death wants you to do and stop these shenanigans, or join the nondescript group that's doing these shenanigans, in which case life and death will be very disappointed in you.
And then you get a cool fight with life and death. A battle to the death and life. You just finished reading Mort by Terry Pratchett. Picturing a very tired death. I like death in Discworld. They seem nice.
I also like death in Discworld. I also like that death in Discworld is the type of character to just be like, right, I guess we're Santa now.
Yeah. Well, Santa's missing. I'll put on the coat.
But at the same time, it's like, I'll be Santa because, you know, they need gifts, but also death is like, you know what's an acceptable gift for a child? A sword.
A sword. They wanted a sword. They asked for a sword, they get a sword. Where's my Discworld? No, I don't have it. Add a good GIF. I'm searching for it.
But yeah, you can like for
Oh,
this like you can actually finish the game and like you know do what that wants you to do, and then it will end this loop. Um, or you can go against that in some way, just like i- ignore your calling almost, or not even your calling. Anyone could do it.
So I was sort of thinking about like structure for how like the story would progress.
Hmm.
And I like the idea that the start is just like you don't know what's happening, just find stuff to do, and eventually bits and pieces will start falling into place, and you'll start realizing, okay, this is a thing to do. There's something's wrong, let's solve it. Then the second part is, okay, let's go out, solve the problem. And then you have a particular task to do to solve the problem. But then the third part will be like, now that you know the actual background to everything, you have a choice as to whether or not to do what you were trying to do in the second part and actually finish it, or do something else.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that the player does have a certain element of agency to that. My original idea was just to have it the other way around, just to straight up like handbrake turn. Act 1, find out what to do. Act 2, do the thing you need to do. Act 3, undo the thing because that wasn't a good idea. But we
I
could
like
add
to
choice.
build up towards this choice of just helping death or not.
So, not to pull things back into SMT, because that's what I've been doing a lot of. The
No, we need to talk about
SMT
Elden Ring.
games, or at least the mainline ones, are fairly well known for having multiple possible endings. And what ending you get sort of depends on how you interact with the world as you're going through. Now, with some of them, the interactions are fairly simple and it's like really obvious what route you're going. But usually what happens is you've got three main lines. You've got law, chaos, and neutral. But usually there are also some other sort of hidden options where it's like we're taking secret option C. So like in SMT3, which I am planning to play as soon as like after I finish the one I'm currently on because they were all very long. At the start, as you're going through and exploring things, it looks like you have three options, and all three options sort of suck. But there's also three secret options, though granted, one of the secret options is you don't do enough for any of the other five options, and so it's like this is the bad end. But of the two other secret options, you can either go, no, I hate all three of you, put it back, or you could go, hey, I hate everything, including God, and kill God.
Yep.
That
Sure.
option is the hardest one because that one you've got some extra boss fights to go through, and they are very hard. So basically, it's like you have the three normal options, the one like good guys win option type thing, and then there's the completionist nightmare because ye old hard boss fight option. And I imagine the fight with life and death is probably the thing where it's like, yeah, you can get it, but if you're just sort of playing it casually as a player who's not an asshole, because in I don't know about you, but whenever I'm playing RPGs to just play RPGs, I don't like being mean unless the
No,
character I'm
absolutely
interacting with
not.
is just an ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they have just the worst moustache.
Listen.
So I imagine with like just casual playthrough, you don't sort of decide, yeah, I'm gonna screw over life and death and everyone else with it,
I mean, like,
because that's mean.
on your casual playthrough, you probably don't even realize that is an option.
Yeah.
Especially since you meet life and death and they're like these massive, like, deer antler creatures. You
They're
know,
huge and they seem pretty chill, all things
they
considered.
seem pretty chill, but also they're in the fucking poppy fields of death and, you know, having a grand old time. Um, but I mean, I believe we like vaguely talked about like a faction system
Potato.
that could work into like that of like which faction you choose to interact with the most, or which one, you know, that can like
Oh god.
guide you towards a certain ending. I'm not saying a ending for every faction. I'm more saying, you know, general like these are your, I don't know, lawful factions. Not even lawful. I don't think anything here is lawful. But, you know, along those lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, you could have. Hey, it's Chris talks about Elden Ring time. You could have an ending for each faction by just copying and pasting one ending and have the colors be different. So you could do that.
Because that's very satisfying.
Yes, it's great when most of the endings of your game are the same except for one line of dialogue. And when one of the other endings of your game is horrendously mistranslated to the point of incomprehensibility.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah. One of the endings in Elden Ring, it just completely changed meaning because it was translated so badly.
Of course.
A lot of people were like, "Oh, it's mysterious. You're not supposed to know what's going on." You read the Japanese version, it's like, "Oh no, you are supposed to know what's going on."
It's very clear what's going on, actually. Um, but yeah, I like the idea that, you know, at least some factions guide you towards a certain type of ending.
Yeah.
And, you know, that can change your ending. But I also like what you said earlier about this, like, kind of like 3 acts, not really act, but 3-stage, like, progression, almost. Still feels really free, but like story-wise, of like there's a beginning and you're just kind of, you know, the fuck is going on? Because
I mean, we could probably have both. I mean, you've got a similar thing going out in Fallout New Vegas. Now, granted, in Fallout New Vegas, you could just sort of help everyone and everyone's mad at you. We're sort of at the start, it's like, right, we're discovering things, meeting factions, and then as you're getting further in, it's like, okay, we're honing in more on which ending we get.
No, that wasn't like a like instead of this. That was like I also like this because
Oh,
that's also what I thought of. Sorry.
no, you're fine. There's just miscommunication. Gotta love it.
Yeah,
Miss,
because
have you communicated?
I also had like the idea in my mind of like, because we talked like vaguely about like you start the game by, you know, waking up in a pool of blood and you're supposed to assume it's your own blood, which is a very good setup for like clearly you died at like, you know, maybe it's like a um like your traveling party was raided or whatever, you know, that kind of setup.
Yeah.
And like you died, but at the beginning you think you just got lucky because you don't know you know, the whole limbo thing yet. So you're like, you wake up in a pool of blood. Everything around you is in chaos. You probably got lucky. What the fuck happens?
Yeah. But then maybe like on subsequent playthroughs, there are enough context clues sort of around there for you to start sort of piecing together ideas of like, okay, maybe like all the clues are there enough to realize that maybe you have the option of not following the whole life death thing, but without the context of the rest of the story, that they make no sense. So it's only on subsequent playthroughs you're like, oh, okay.
It's like when you play it for the first time, it's like, it's very like a beginning of like, maybe you just got raided, maybe it's something else, you got attacked, whatever. You probably got lucky. Now you're gonna go into the world to figure out what happened because amnesia, maybe, kind of. And then on subsequent playthroughs, you're like, that's a pool of blood. I know what that means now. And also, like, maybe you see that, like, there aren't, like, really any... Like, if you were traveling with, you know, a whole party or something, like, there aren't any bodies there, like, implying that other people also got, you know, are still alive, but, you know, just like you, but they, you know, went somewhere else because they were just like you, like, I'm alive, I guess. Time to go. So you can kind of like puzzle things already, like, from the beginning, even though it's not clear at all.
Yeah, you can be given the pieces, you don't necessarily know what they mean.
Good mystery is always one where you can look back at it and go, oh. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I already died at the beginning.
Yeah,
I was dead.
take that, Dark Souls. In this game, you die before you play.
Yeah. Also gives like a fun, like, and you can have like a fun quote before the game starts, and you're at the beginning, you're just like, oh, fun normal quote, and then like subsequent playthrough, it's like, clearly Death said that to me, and then I, you know, became alive again. Just like every other time you quote unquote die.
There was the other idea as well that we were sort of talking about of having like sort of other characters in the game who were sort of traveling through the story alongside you, not necessarily trying to do the same thing you are, maybe indeed trying to do the opposite thing you are, but who can like sort of... I don't know. I like it when a game you have a character who's just sort of like you meet intermittently as you're going through, and you can sort of share their story as well as your story. It's also a good way to write multiple different storylines and then pick the one you want for the player character and put the rest of them in NPCs. So we could all write our own main
that
story.
Also possibly leads itself well to whatever factioning thing might be happening. If we've got like multiple things that are sort of fighting over control of life and death, as it were.
Yeah, we still got to work out what's actually happening. That's probably an important.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
You know, there's something to do with life and death can only take us so far.
I mean, it is that... I mean, the problem is clear, to me at least, because the problem is that, you know, things aren't moving on as they are supposed to. So life and death can't do their work, essentially, because things refuse to die, and then, you know, other things refuse to come alive because, you know, there can only be so many things in the world, or whatever vague idea you want to ascribe to. But
it
but
does beg the question,
like,
though, of like why.
Yeah, why and how would you possibly solve that?
Well, and then also, why hasn't like the general population noticed? Like, oh, grandma, she's 156 somehow.
Yeah, and old Jimmy and Maria, they've been trying to conceive for a while now, and nothing's happening. You know.
I mean,
if death isn't happening, but life isn't either. So.
Yeah, I mean,
no children have been born.
It could be like the case of like people don't notice until they're like, you know, lost souls or whatever. So you think it's weird, but nobody else seems to think it's weird.
Okay.
Because, like, oh, they've been trying to conceive for a while. How long is a while? A while.
Yeah, maybe there's
Who
also
knows?
some sort of...
Maybe they've been trying to conceive for the last 48 years. You don't know.
Maybe there's also some time shenanigans going on. Who knows? Or people like perception of time shenanigans.
Yeah. Like, maybe you come across, like, a calendar in the game, and it's just all out of whack. But, like, most people, like, in generic fantasy settings, most people don't have a calendar lying around their home. You know? They're like...
Oh, we're gonna end up with a near situation if we go too far with this.
But it's like, this idea of, like, people haven't really been noticing that anything's too weird unless it goes too far, like with the forest. Like, people know that there's something weird in the forest. And with time shenanigans and stuff. It's just that they're not aware that it's also happening to them already. Or something along those lines.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess it's like you can notice something happening, but it's difficult to notice something not happening.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah,
sort of
that's
thing here, is
true.
that they're not noticing the fact that people aren't dying, that people aren't getting born, because it's easier to notice when something is actually like affecting you as opposed to not affecting you. The absence of something is harder to spot than the presence of it.
I mean, it's kind of like how during COVID times, time felt super weird because, you didn't have your usual time markers. Because you couldn't go anywhere.
I mean,
Or at least that's what it felt like to me.
yeah, I mean, to me, time has just generally been accelerating, and my lifestyle did not change an awful lot over COVID because I'm a hermit. But
Yeah, but you know the gist, I imagine.
yeah.
Like, things don't feel quite as real because, you haven't been celebrating your birthday, so, like, when did that happen? Or, you couldn't get together with your family for Christmas, so who knows what the fucking date is today. But, like, time feels weird when things aren't present in time. That doesn't make sense as a sentence. I'm aware.
That's right.
But like you said, it's very, like, hard to, like, notice when things aren't there, kind of. In a different way than what you said, but still the same, like, feel.
I like that. That was like school essay writing. It's like
Say what you said. Say what you said again.
No, I was thinking more like it's like this thing, which is the same sentence as what they wrote, but the words have been rearranged. But I mean it in an original way.
Sorry.
No. I just it reminded me of my old school days. Of like, how am I supposed to? There's only so many ways you can say this sentence.
I mean, in English, sure. If we're talking in Latin, you just
It felt
rearrange the
different to
sentence.
me in my head, and then when I said that loud, it was like, that's what Chris just said. Anyway, time's weird.
Time's weird.
That's what I'm getting at.
I'm fine with time shenanigans, or like perceptual time shenanigans, not necessarily.
Yeah.
People are sort of stuck in a limbo, but they don't really realize it because it is just this. They're carrying on, but they're not actually getting anywhere.
But that again begs the question of, like, how would one go about solving that?
It depends how it's happening. Again, we've only really talked about an effect, not the cause.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and we've got this idea of a faction thing going on, but then the question becomes, is it like, do each one of these factions know what's going on? Can you play the entire game just helping or not helping groups and never touch on what it is life and death actually wants you to do.
Yeah.
Is there an ending of the game where life and death are just kind of like, right, they fucked off, let's make another one?
Yeah.
I imagine so, yeah. If you just,
Maybe, I imagine that might be the default ending.
Yeah.
Because the canonical start is that your previous versions didn't fix the thing, so I like the idea that the ending is you didn't fix the thing either.
Yeah.
New game plus, we're trying this again because you didn't do it the first time.
Yeah. Maybe it's the thing where it's like there's a problem and the problem's been set up, but as the story goes along, either like your perceptions of the problem get shifted or a different problem comes up, and there's something that seems like a more pressing issue. Like there's somebody who wants to destroy the world or whatever, and you kill the person who destroys the world. Victory! Everybody claps, and life and death are there. Like, well, the problem still hasn't been fixed. Because like the game has just sort of shifted your attention away from the actual problem.
Yeah, I imagine that like on a first playthrough, you're not aware that this is happening, and the game ends with you being in that same place again where you start, and then you're like,
oh god, this is going to be a Nier, isn't it?
I don't know what Nier is. I don't know how to explain it. You sound disappointed.
No, I'm less disappointed and more, oh god, here we go.
I've heard, the one thing I know about Nier is it has about 700 endings.
Yes, and the thing is, it's not just like a branching system. The endings literally lead into each other.
Oh.
So, okay. So, Nier now I'm not going to be able to explain everything well, because the Nier games, and then by extension the Drakengard games, are very, very weird. And that's a capital W and spelt however you can, with it making it just look so strange. Like, think of the game with the weirdest ending Drakengard hasn't beat. Like, I can assure you, Drakengard has anything beat in terms of what endings. Does anyone care if I spoil the Nier games?
No.
Spoilers for the Nier games. Okay, you're alright.
So, in the Nier games, and I'm gonna get timeline stuff messed up because this is not my wheelhouse, as it were. But basically, in the Nier games, in modern-ish day society, there was a plague type thing that happened. A whole bunch of people died. They came up with a really, really weird way of getting people to survive by separating their souls from their bodies. Don't ask how that works. Nier Replicant picks up, and you are in sort of a medievalish feeling place, like not very high technology, except for there's some robots running around, but we don't really know how they got there, and they're just outside of society, and we can't talk to them anyway, so, moving on. And there are these monsters that are attacking people. And your sister gets sick and disappears, and there's weird stuff going on. Long convoluted what the fuck just happened here story short. The monsters were the souls of the people that got separated from the bodies. And the people running around are the people's bodies, who apparently after hundreds of years are slowly sort of building their own soul.
Oh, okay.
But since there's a limited number of people and a limited number of bodies, there's a couple of, like, androids that are just sort of every so often resetting people, where it's like, oh, you got too old, right, time to make a new version of you. Here, have this baby. Like, literal stork situation going on. And yeah, it gets weird.
Okay.
And then with that game, and then also Nier Automata, again, you've got those multiple endings that are sort of leading into each other, where you go from the ending of one game into the ending of the next one. And it's odd.
It sounds
very odd. I would say I'm not doing the story justice, but I'm not sure if you can. I know that Deer spent an entire stream trying to explain to Barry the or of the near universe. And when I say an entire stream, I do mean an entire stream, because it gets deep and it gets weird, and there's things in... It's not just games, and then also you've got bits where it's like, okay, so that doesn't feel like an important plot point, but then it is.
Yeah, I was... when you were describing this, my first thought was Kingdom Hearts. And, you know, the 8-hour stream with Barry and Gam of trying to explain the plot of the Kingdom Hearts games. And I'm glad to know that there's one for Nier as well. That's... particularly
at least with
the whole
Kingdom Hearts games, all of the plot happens in games with a couple of manga adaptations of the games. Nier has stage plays that have plot important parts in it.
Marvelous. But yeah, like particularly talking about the bodies and souls separating, and then the bodies developing their own souls, and so on and so forth. That's very Kingdom Hearts as well. The nobodies and the heartless and such.
Yeah, and this isn't even getting into what's going on with the multiple timelines with the Dragon God series, because I'm not touching on that. I don't. It's weird. It's very weird.
It's weird. It's spelled like this.
Yeah, essentially. Throw some letters in there. It's not letters. Throw some numbers in there as well, and then we'll get it.
There are 2 quaternions in there. We got there. We got to maths.
Let's go away from maths real quick.
Let's leave maths.
Let's leave.
Maybe done with the maths.
Okay, so I'm sort of
I
thinking
know I
of,
need
like...
to stop you two. I'm the only non-maths person here.
I'm wondering if like each zone has its own faction, as to how they sort of... Maybe not all of them have their own unique story. Maybe a bunch of them are like aligned. And so they have the same quest. But I like the idea, because one of the first things I thought was like, maybe every area has a MacGuffin you need to get. You know, the crystal of the thing, and so on and so forth. As is very common in these things. You need the amulet of the forest, or you need the Lord Soul of the Seath, or etc. etc. But thinking about this idea of there being sort of like various factions who all have their own opinions on what's going on and how to solve what's going on, maybe you just need all of the MacGuffins to be in one place, and so if you align with the Golden City people, you obviously don't need to do the Golden City level, you just need to do all the rest of them, because they've got their MacGuffin. But if you were to do something with the robots in the forest, too, they have a solution, then you would need to do the Golden City level, but you wouldn't need to do the forest level, etc.
Yeah, I can get that.
And then going back to SNT, in 3 at least there's and actually also 5. I can't speak for the others because it's been a while since I've played some of them. Whenever you're getting to the end, if you're following the sort of main factions, for the most part, you don't have to fight the leader of the group you are following. I say for the most part, because in 3 there is one faction where their whole thing is like might is right, and you do have to fight their leader at the end because they're like, right, we're at the end, come on buddy, show me that you've got the guts to do it, and then you have to beat them up and kill them.
That's fair.
But with the other 2 ones, if you get to the end, you don't have to fight. And then if you do the hey, put that thing back where it came from, or so help me, you do have to fight all 3 of them, because you're against all 3 of them. But yeah, that is an interesting possibility. Because yes, you are right, these games do tend to have MacGuffins all over the place.
happening to this guy, Chris?
This was sort of an attempt to draw sort of like stage 1 Volric. Where he's just at the low point. And I originally did it with like all the spirit. I really liked how you drew the spirits when we were first sort of exploring this idea. Your yearning armor character and their sort of flamey thing. And so I was trying to do something like that, but then I thought, I don't know, maybe when you're down and out, your spirit falls instead of rises, literally. So instead of having a wispy smoke going up, the smoke goes down. And I can't draw that, apparently. But I gave 2 options. Hey, you did. Yeah, I thought I'd have a crack at actually drawing Volric, because we've had this character for a while, and I have enemies of the Golden City, so...
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of it, like, pouring down and out, like it's, you know, it's just, like, it's, there's no, like, energy to it, so it's just kind of there, because it's bad. It's rotten. This is what rotten soul looks like. Been out of the fridge for too long. Now it's gotten all...
We need to get Volric back in the fridge.
It's been in the fridge for too long and went rotten.
It's become too dense.
Been in like the back of the fridge. On like one of the things that you can't really see it on, so you've just forgotten about for the past 4 months, and now it's still there, and look at it now.
I don't remember if I showed you guys the picture of the soft cheese that got left in the back of my dad's fridge.
I don't think I want to see that unless you want me to throw it live on stream.
Hang on, can I just take a second to appreciate the sentence? I don't think I showed you the picture of the soft cheese that got left in the back of my dad's fridge.
Yeah.
I just want to appreciate that sentence as a whole.
Yeah, spoilers, it was not soft when I found it.
I can imagine.
So basically, I pulled it out and I'm like, oh, it's the soft cheese. I wonder if it's still good. The answer was no.
It shattered.
It was, well, yeah, actually, when I tried to cut it, it got brittle and broke, and then also it smelled funny, and it's like, I'm not eating this. I'm just going to put this in the bin, and in fact, I'm going to put it in the bin outside because I don't want it stinking up the kitchen.
You don't want to get tried for chemical warfare crimes. I don't know how souls look. Other people are better than doing those wispy things than me. Everything I add makes it look worse. I was like, I'm through a series of circumstances, I'm the only person drawing today, despite the fact that I am the person who said I need to draw less.
Yeah, you do need to draw less, but you know.
Also, I found out today, complete side note, I hold a whisk like a pen when I'm whisking. Turns out, I only realised that because I'm trying to obviously look after my finger by not drawing so much, and then I'd start doing some cooking, and I'm like, oh, hang on. I'm whisking like I draw.
Don't do that, Chris.
Are you saying lots of backwards and forwards motions with something pressed against the finger that I need to rest is a bad idea?
Yes. Yes, I am saying that.
Well, the cheese sauce disagreed. Actually, the cheese sauce needed more whisking, so maybe it was... Also, it wasn't really a cheese sauce, it was a white sauce with a bit of cheese in it. Anyway, stuff. Yeah, okay, I like this idea. We will probably need to work out what the MacGuffins are that we need to get together and why we need to do it. Another thing, I guess, is... like, if we eventually decide that we have a villain or collection of villains or what have you, is Because the first question is like, why would they try and stop the flow of life and death? An obvious answer would be if it's the Golden City people, they don't want to die. But we could have a situation where they're not actually trying to stop the flow of life and death. That's just a side effect of what they are trying to do.
Yeah, that's actually what I was sort of thinking. Like, if this is I mean, heck, up in the Flying City, it might be a thing where it's like we're siphoning power for powering machine to end rebellion, and then it's just kind of like, where's a convenient source of power we can pull from? Hey, look, we're using this red liquid as a fuel. Yeah, this is just like fuel, and it's like life, and meanwhile, life and death are just sort of internally screaming.
Yeah, that could be like a thing for like the Flying City. It's just a fuel crisis, and I like the idea of like maybe you're just like you know, one faction that's like explicitly like against life and death, and one faction that's explicitly like for life and death, which is probably life and death, but who knows. And then the other ones are all just kind of doing their own thing. You know, things happen, we need power or we need something else, and you know, these things happen. we
Casually
most
fucking up it fucking up the entirety of existence, as you do.
I mean, like, if like as I said before, like if like most people aren't aware that like this fucked up time stuff is happening, like why would they like be trying to like solve it? Can't really solve something you don't know it's happening.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Very
And
true.
also in general, like I imagine like probably most people don't even know that like life and death exist as like
Oh yeah.
you know, ethereal beings. Like, obviously, there's the concept of it, but, like, you know, who expects them to be, like, real beings that have a say in this world and that want things, you know, solved or stuff. But, yeah, and then you have the Golden City peeps who are, like, very aware that life and death probably are a thing and who are, like, blissfully trying to avoid dying.
Sorry, I'm taking in this information. I'm just trying to work out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Throw it at the wall with the rest of the spaghetti.
Oh, spaghetti! Should call this Project Spaghetti. Really should have.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, any project is going to start out as Project Spaghetti. It's just that this one we ended up including actual spaghetti.
I don't know what faction would be like I mean, I guess just life and death would be the ones that are just, you know, trying to solve this thing actually. And then, because you know, also just looking at all the other factions, they're just, you know, kind of places and stuff is happening in those places, and they're just trying to deal with their own shit. And it just happens to be that they need the artifacts from other, you know, places for whatever the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, maybe it's like you sort of you get sent to collect the artifacts for whatever group of people you eventually come across. But as you do so, you start to learn about the places you go to get the artifacts. You start to realize that they want the artifacts for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you can start making your decisions of like, oh, actually, who should I take these to? Because just because you started collecting them for one group doesn't mean you have to finish giving it to them.
Yeah,
you know?
true. You can just, in the middle of your quest, decide to, I'd rather, take them to the abyss.
And just throw them to the
throw them
bottom.
in the ocean.
That could be an ending. Like, just take all of these things that are really important to the running of the universe and just throw them to the bottom of the ocean where no one can find them. And everything decays.
Yeah.
Or stagnates. That's
the
the stagnation ending. That's the everything stays in the loop. This is just it for eternity.
Yeah, because I mean, even like if Life and Death make a next one, they're not gonna get these things back from the abyss.
Yeah.
I mean, they could always just be like, okay, cool. Time to make a mermaid.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
What was the because Oobs did make the character, right? The hang on, let me have a look. Yes, Oobs made I'm gonna say this wrong. Nataya Denmuir? Big old serpent at the bottom of the sea. Yeah. It whispers lies. Either way, that could be the thing that doesn't let anyone have the stuff anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it could also because Plums in their notes about the abyss was like said to be bottomless, but there has to be a floor somewhere, right? So it could be just like therefore eternally just floating down, because who the fuck knows where the abyss ends? It's the abyss. It's called the abyss for a reason.
Okay, I've just had an idea, and this is going to be either really interesting or incredibly stupid. Because I've just come up with it. I'm trying to work out what we could do for MacGuffins, what we can do for the thing you need to get. And this is a bit premature because there is a MacGuffin thing on the wheel.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think, like, should it be keys, or should it be amulets, or magical crystals, or souls, or whatever? And I'm trying to think of something more abstract. And I sort of remembered when we first started this that a lot of people, they set up their zones with, like, things that were deliberately not known. So, like, there's the spire in the Golden City that goes above the clouds and no one knows what's there, and there's the bit at the center of where all the viaducts meet. There's the tower that no one's been able to get into, and there's the bottom of the abyss, but no one's been there because no one even knows where it is. I'm wondering, and again, might sound stupid and not make any sense to anyone else. I'm wondering if the thing that we need, the MacGuffin we need to get, is just like answers. There's each of these places have a mystery that has been a perpetual mystery. And it's the knowledge of what that thing is that is the MacGuffin itself. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense, but
maybe the real treasure was the friends we made along the way.
It does make sense to me, but I am like also immediately thinking, okay, but how can you like turn that into something?
I mean,
game that you can hold, essentially. Like, how can you make this like a...
It doesn't necessarily need to be a thing you can hold. It's just like, I don't know, maybe something is harvesting that information or that knowledge.
Idea. Maybe it's both. Maybe for the regular endings, as it were, where you just sort of align with some faction, like mortal faction group, they are asking you to get, like, there's things from inside of the mystery area inside the forest that will help with the power situation that's going on upstairs, or there's things in the Golden City that will help with unlocking stuff in the forest or stuff like that. So there's like physical keys. But if we're going with this idea that the hero, as it were, is not a normal mortal creature and is sort of something else, maybe if it's like you're building towards the ultimate good ending, as it were, where you fix it, the thing that's less important to that ending is the items, and what's more important is the knowledge and connections. So it could be a both. Why not both?
Why not both?
Why not both?
I mean, it could be like... I mean, yeah, that could be like a thing. Like, if you have them just be items, like, that are somehow related to, like, the mystery you're trying to solve. So at first they seem like very, like... Of course, they're, like, specific items that will help with whatever quest you're trying to solve, but also they seem like a quite random array of items when you, like, line them all up. But then when you're trying to get to, you know, the life and death ending, it's like, oh, these are just, you know, the answers to whatever the fuck happens.
Yeah, like you go to them with all the bits and pieces, and you go, here they are, I found them. And you're like, what do you mean? we didn't want we don't want objects. Throw those away. We don't need those.
we don't need these objects. You've gathered them, but
Yeah.
that's not what's important here. What's important here is what you learned from it.
Yeah. I'm glad you have souvenirs.
But you can keep those. They're not for us. We're, you know, creatures from the beyond. I don't know what I'm gonna do with a power cell. There's no power here.
Just handing life and death a lithium battery and be like, here you go.
Here you go. Yeah, life and death just, you know, they kind of treat you like a toddler who's just given them something like, oh, wow, shiny, here, you can have it back for your collection.
Now make sure you clean up everything and put it back in the toy box.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they lead you to all these things by like talking about the important thing and the MacGuffin and the location of it and all that sort of stuff. At no point did they specify that you needed to get the thing. They were just like, well, that's just a way of getting you there. Like, we needed to give you some way of knowing when you were there.
Yeah. We need to give you a clue of some kind, you know, like a learning aid almost. Like, you associate this piece of knowledge with this item.
God, don't tell me we're gonna have just like a mind palace of the MacGuffins representing things.
I do think it falls in line with what Oops was trying to get at with Life and Death being very casual, as Life and Death are now just tired parents.
Oh god, now we've also got another thing that's Kingdom Heartsy here, because the keyblades that you pick up for the most part are like physical representations of your memories and friendships in the various worlds you go to. So now it's like, oh, we've done the MacGuffin thing, but the thing that was important wasn't the MacGuffin, it was the I'm connecting with these people and trying to solve problems to eventually solve a more existential problem.
Yeah. But in this instance, it is literally the actual information that is a MacGuffin. It's not the fact that we now know. No, the information is tangibly going to be used for something.
Yeah. But also the MacGuffins are, you know, actual MacGuffins. Like, if you don't do the Life and Death quest, they just kind of, you know, they are in need of a powerful power source.
Yeah.
So you kind of, you know, are gonna get this from somewhere.
The other factions are still gonna need those things as MacGuffins.
Yeah. Just Life and Death don't. Because they're Life and Death. I feel like we're getting somewhere. This is fun.
Yeah. I was trying to work out how to come up with a nice design for sort of Volric's. I don't want to say Volric's crack.
I don't know why you would say that.
Too late.
No.
Too late. You just said it.
But like the idea was that you would recognize Volric because the mask or the helmet or whatever would always have a crack down it. and that's the sort of identifiable sort of. Sorry, miss. You did so well not communicating. I apologize for grabbing your attention. But yeah, I like the idea of it being like something that is a visual motif that is just sort of recognizable. Maybe like, you know, this, not splinters, the other enemies that have like cracked armor and stuff like that. It's just sort of higgledy-piggledy cracks or whatever. But Volrek has a specific,
yeah,
noticeable design. But that involves making a specific noticeable design. I don't know.
I think the key might be to keep it symmetrical, because I look at the like left one there and like the 2 lines with 1 line there in the middle, which is more symmetrical, already feels like more character designing to me, like more recognizable, even though it's just armor, rather than these more random cracks on the side. That's just my opinion.
Well, the original idea when I was doing the sketch up here was I wanted to make the character look sad, which is difficult when they're a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of came up with this idea of doing the cracks sort of either side of where the eyes would be and then going up like worried eyebrows. But I'm wondering if I could take that motif there of sort of like cracks going down from the eyes and sort of gives it like a tear-like sort of motif. You pointing those out. Those were just, I was trying to come up with a visual motif for the armor. I haven't even thought about the crack yet. I didn't start nothing, miss. How dare you?
You may not have started it, but the mod is finishing it.
Oh yeah, I got my own cardboard sword. I'm a mod in Ragdoll's stream.
Oh.
Yeah, because weird things happened.
There were bot attacks. And I missed it.
There was like 5 by followers bots that all posted at once, and it's like, you know what? No.
Time to do the duel. Unfortunately, we have swords in different places, so it doesn't quite work. Quick, Ragdoll, make Miss a mod.
I mean, I could.
Honestly, there was one point where I was considering, let's just make all of you a mod. I trust you all. But then there's also the fun of some people having swords and some people not. It's funny. I could also VIP people. I have no idea what that does.
I have no idea what that means either.
I think it means they have permissions for posting, but not permissions for, like, actions on other people posting, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, if you've got a thing where it's like, no one can post links, but VIPs can post links, but VIPs can't do mod actions.
Okay, you can set up exceptions. That makes sense.
At least I think that's what it is.
Sounds logical. So,
yes,
I'm inclined to believe you.
Just because it sounds logical doesn't mean that a company would do that, because companies...
That's also true, but, you know, I want to believe.
But yeah, it was just like 5 bots, one right after the other, and I'd go and block one, and then it's like, oh, the message is still there. No, wait, it's not that the message is still there. It's a new message. And then another new message, and another new message. And it's like, sir, I'm playing a game where I don't even have the game listed in the search information beyond just the title. I'm just here to vibe. Go away.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I had to blow my nose because it's hay fever season, and also my sinuses do not let me blow my nose without my ears going. It's bad.
Yeah. I get that. I've also been trying not to wheeze into the mic because my throat is funny today. I went out for a walk and now I cannot breathe anymore.
Yeah, I just briefly went outside. My brother came over. We just had a little chat outside and just immediately started sneezing.
Yeah. Every time I breathe, I now have like a little whistle noise. Little squeak.
You can do a
Very
kind of
annoying.
like, a bit like Mongolian throat singing, but with whistling. Mongolian throat whistling.
Yeah.
Stop breathing. Perfect advice.
Thanks, miss. I really feel the love.
Well, so we're an hour and 15 minutes in. Do we want to spin the wheel since we've gotten
we
some
could
ideas
do.
out and
Yeah.
around?
We could, ooh, you don't need to see that. No, go. No, get there. I'm prepared for things.
Of course, sure.
You get to see that I call my folders really important things like arty stuff and businessy stuff. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's fair. And to be fair, my folder is just called drawings. And also unfinished drawings.
All of my like master folders are stuff. There's arty stuff, video stuff, business stuff. The stuff is completely redundant, but it makes me smile. Any wheel. Wheel.
Wheel.
Plural. We've had a lot of characters and enemies so far.
Yeah.
And by design, we should not land on the same space twice, but characters and enemies have like 4 spaces on the wheel, so statistically we were going to get a lot of those. But statistically, we're likely to get something else this time. So
To get characters again.
character, yay! I might get a dice and then like have an alternate prompt if people want it.
Yeah.
Yay. Spin! Boom! It's spin time. It goes spin.
One of those things where you made it random, but it was too random.
I clicked off it. It stopped spinning. Now there we go. Enemy! God's sake!
Is it enemies again?
It's enemies again.
Well, we just... Wait, hold on. We
Where's
just
the dice?
got enemies. That was literally the last prompt.
but we didn't get enemies in that space on the wheel.
I mean, I guess we can use this to start figuring out what's going on with factions, because they have the potential to be enemies.
Like proper bosses.
Proper
maybe
boss.
Okay. Yeah, maybe let's take this as boss rather than an enemy.
Okay. Let's think about super bosses. That might, be the last boss before you get to the MacGuffin.
So, I mean, we might as well start with the best one. Chibi, you have the world.
Right!
So you get the antagonist.
Cool! That's not a lot of pressure at all.
Dark has Viaduct, Christy has Chib Caves. Ragdoll, you get the Floating City. So there's some fun lore to play around with there. Plamps has Harbour. Lewis gets Wizard Nonsense. Oh, is there a wizard boss? Ooh, I didn't think about that.
Oh
no. Kira can have the Abyss, which makes Kira could maybe think about the anglerfish thing. Oobs has Golden City. Everybody can do the forest. So if you want to come up with a forest boss as well, it's open. I get Limbo, which is, I guess, just life. I get to work out how life and death act as a boss fight.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
Don't try just, think of the boss fight. Think of the mechanics.
Okay.
Make the hardest boss fight in existence.
I'll do proper animatics for all the moves.
No, that's not what I mean. No drawing. Rest your hand.
I want to draw. There are so many cool things I want to make for this. I was really looking forward to doing a nice digital painting of that big gate thing that I doodled last time.
Mm-hmm.
And fingers exploding, honestly. It doesn't feel so bad today.
It happens to the best of us.
Exploding tendons.
Yes.
It happens to the best of us. It happens to the boss of us. Bosses! Yeah. Let's get rid of the wheels and swoosh. Oh, the wheels are still there because you're capturing. Ah, the illusion is broken. This is a free floating program. Going. Professional.
You're doing great.
I was doing great. Right. Okay. So yeah, I don't think I didn't have a specific symbol for bosses. So yeah, we'll consider this boss.
Well, okay, let me think of the fucking end boss.
Thank you, miss. I'm doing all right. We're slowly lowering the expectations. You're doing great. You're doing all right. You're doing fine. You haven't destroyed anything yet.
Okay. I'm gonna have to reread the stuff Dark put down on what's going on with his place.
Yeah, he also left a bunch open, so that's fun.
Yeah.
I've got to somehow draw Oobs's characters, which is just in and of itself a challenge. Because Oobs has some grand old designs. Which bears no relations to the TV show Grand Designs. Which I would not describe as grand. How do you...
I mean, what kind of big bad antagonist is there if all endings are faction related? That's also my problem right now.
True, yeah.
We just figured out like an hour and 24 minutes of how all the factions play into this. And I'm just the world enemy.
Secret boss.
So yeah, secret super boss. The optional super boss.
Optional, cool, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I draw the line at a giant marble.
I really like Ozma. What's your problem? Ozma's great. They look like a bouncy ball.
Okay, I'm not gonna make an orb.
Oh. Is it because drawing
I'm glad
circles
you like
is hard?
the orb, but I'm not gonna make an orb.
It's great. Every other super boss in every other Final Fantasy is a massive monster with big biceps and huge claws. And for this one, they just decided, what if orb?
What if orb?
What if orb? I'm kind of thinking for like life and death. Again, I'm thinking about like movements and stuff. I don't know because these are characters that Oobs has had for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to tread on toes or anything. But I like the idea that when you're fighting them, they are.
We've also got Mr. Tubbs.
Yes.
Yes. Brain completely froze there. Yeah, the cat. I'm literally looking at a picture of Mr. Tubbs right now. Like, it's there. It's right in front of me, and Brain said no. That is true. Is this gonna be a 3-phase fight?
I mean, it could also be a case of like you have to fight Mr. Tubbs the first time you get there because you annoy the cat.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Tubbs is serving like a Cerberus type situation where it's like, what are you doing here?
Sanctuary Guardian kind of thing. Testing your mettle.
Yeah.
And once you kill them, there's just like once you defeat them, there's just this sort of like poof of flowers, and then the flowers dissipate, and then there's just this little cat there. Like, and then plods off.
Yeah.
And you follow, and they take you to life and death, and you're like, oh wow, Mr. Tubbs thinks you're worthy.
Oh wow, I love the idea of you just go through this probably pretty tough fight with this monstrous cat. Then it turns into small cats and just meows. And then it leads you to these, life and death, who are very impressive ethereal creatures. And then they're just like, oh, Mr. Tubbs deemed you worthy. You're just, I'm sorry, Mr. Tubbs?
Yeah. Yeah, it's called something like, Limbo Guardian or something.
Yeah. Definitely. This is this extravagant title, and then you just get to life and death. You're just like, Mr. Tubbs, really?
And then in New Game
I
Plus, it's
like
actually called Mr. Tubbs.
I like the idea that its title is like Limbo Guardian or something like that, but it decided it wanted to be called Mr. Tubbs. So Life and Death are like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's Mr. Tubbs.
I do not have to work out how to draw animals.
No, and actually, reading Dark's thing, Dark's current main description of the city sort of gives us a possible timeline. Because with what he has written, and we can obviously change the dates on this, it's like something has gone amiss for about 2 years. So maybe it's just because it's leading to, like, I'm thinking with whatever's going on with the life-death thing, it's probably, like, the fiddling and the what the fuck, get out of here thing has probably been happening for a while, but I'm thinking the, like, boiling point was hit about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I can see that.
So maybe it's okay, Life and Death have been sort of sending people out to fix things. And now it's like, okay, well, now we really have to start sending things out because a boiling point was reached.
Yeah. I like that. Because that probably means that, like, yeah, fucked up time stuff has been happening, like, with the first 4. Who knows how long. But, like, for most people, it's been, like, 2 years of, not knowing what time it is, essentially.
2 years of Boxing Day.
Yeah.
I don't know how to represent this in scribbles, but I like the idea that one of their attacks is just to swish through the flowers and they just send flowers in your face and it makes your character sort of stagger back or get drowsy.
Yeah, that's fun.
Also, tail sparkles.
Yeah. Tail sparkle.
That turn into projectile.
See.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything for optional boss, and it's just not happening.
The only idea I had, I was trying to... I had an idea was like a boss that represents every area, and then I realized how awkward that would be given the variety of areas we have. But not impossible. But then I thought, what if it's... Because if each individual, like, faction has its own sort of goal, but that ultimately it's having this side effect, is that coincidence, or is there somebody convincing these people to do the selfish thing that they want to do because of the side effect? Like, is there like a kind of Machiavellian, like, behind the scenes ear whisperer who is pulling strings, as it were?
Sort of a devil on the shoulder.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, do this because it's helping you, but actually it's not, it's helping me.
Yeah.
Could be fun.
I heard. You know how bad I am at drawing cats. Every time I draw a cat, it looks like a dog. Every time I draw a dog, it looks like a fox. What was it? It was drawing the tiger from Dark Souls 2. The first one looked like a dog, the second one looked like a fox. None of them look like tigers.
Oh, we just need to figure out what animal it is that when you try and draw it, it looks like a cat. And then you just draw that anytime you want to try and draw a cat.
It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
It's not a
it'll always be the one
German-French situation.
Exactly. I was about to say that. Yeah. It's not like I can start trying to do a German accent and get a pretty good French one.
Thinking. So with the flying city, we've got sort of like groups of people that are fighting over essentially the remains of the technology. I'm thinking as part of the we're fixing everything, damn it, ending, you probably are sort of resolving that for some value of resolving. Or potentially just being like, great, okay, how about we just leave? Cut our losses and leave.
Yeah.
And not end up with like a Bioshock situation where it's like, great, now we're all just stuck at the bottom of the ocean. In a literal sunk cost fallacy.
Well, it'd be more Bioshock Infinite, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and instead we're in the sky, stuck in a hover cost fallacy? I don't know how I want to make that into a pun.
No. I can't either. I'm coming up with a lot of puns and none of them are relevant. Floating point, floating voter, sky, pie in the sky. Dunno. Yeah, this is looking more and more like a dog. It's hard. Let me get a picture of like a jaguar or something. Puma. That's not what I'm thinking of. But yeah, that was the only idea I had for a sort of like a boss that ties everything together as a sort of Machiavellian ear whisperer. Whether or not they're actually like, you know, defeating them's not going to stop the problem because the problem's already started. But
I mean, I like the idea that, you know, life and death's so, you know, if you go like the life and death route, their solution is not defeat the evil, it's solve the problem.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like, evil tends to want to go and kill people. Honestly, that's not our, you know, how people die is not our business.
Yeah, people are gonna die. But they need to die.
Yeah, what you lot do up there is none of your business. So long as you come down here eventually.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, like, probably from their ancient perspective, it's probably also like someone is always gonna try and defy death. These things happen, so we're not bothered about that as long as stuff gets solved, okay?
So Oobs described them as lawful neutral. So basically it's like this is just how existence is type thing.
Yeah.
Which, considering what they are, sort of makes sense. There are definitely some like mortal people who are say, "Oh, we're lawful neutral," and it's like, no, you're lawful asshole. You are refusing to change things that could be changed. But things dying and things being born, that's like saying, "Oh, we're going to change gravity." Like, excuse me, sir, that's not how this works.
It's as lawful neutral as you can be, essentially.
Lawful to the laws of nature.
Yeah, these are the way things are, and supposed to be, and continue to be. And if they aren't like that, things are wrong.
Can't spend all day trying to draw a cat.
It's a very important cat, okay?
Honestly, at this point, I've just settled for drawing a cat. It doesn't have to be this one.
Well, like...
I've drawn the Royal Rat Authority. I'm trying to draw a cat, and I've drawn a rat that looks like a dog.
That's an achievement, you know? There's multiple layers there, and I'm not sure which one is more interesting to comment on.
Like, what would be... You know, who would be the devil on big people's shoulder? Would it just be another entity? I don't like it being another entity, but maybe? Because they would have to be, like, everywhere, essentially. Or...
It might just be because I was watching somebody play the We Were Here games, but I just imagined a evil jester-like character. As is tradition, the evil jester whispering in the ear of the king.
Yeah.
No idea if that fits in this. Probably not. I don't think we have a king.
We do have a king in the Golden City, so that makes sense.
Okay, that helps. Eyes closer to the snoot. It's still not great, but it's more catty.
Like,
it's been so long on that.
Like,
no effort on anything else.
Someone who could potentially fit in anywhere. Which could be a fun thing of like, oh, you've seen this guy. You've seen the actual evil in action throughout your journey.
Oh, yeah.
You just didn't fucking realize it because he just looks like some guy.
Well, what restrictions would we have?
So, did either of you see the first Wonder Woman movie that was set during World War One?
I did, yeah. Yeah. It's been a while, but I did.
So, spoilers for Wonder Woman, I guess. The twist in that is that Ares was hiding as a human, And the human he was hiding as was like a diplomat trying to do quote unquote peace talks.
Yeah.
And basically the human enemy, as it were, like the person you thought was Ares was actually just a human doing human things. Yeah, Ares had sort of given, like, whispered an idea in their head, but Ares didn't do any of that. Ares was working as a peace broker because basically it's like, with how these peace talks usually go, there's going to be another war. And in this particular situation, those of you who know the history of World War I and the peace treaties that happened at the end of World War I know what happened after that.
Everything was happy and fine, and people got on well.
Definitely, it's not like all the things that were in the peace treaty caused Germany to basically go bankrupt as a whole country.
What do you mean? Germany was absolutely fine. I've been to Germany in the late 1920s, early 1930s. You got cabaret, you got all sorts of cool, hip swinging stuff going on. Everyone's happy and fine. Ignore the rallies and
the worst inflation in like the history of money.
Yeah, wasn't it? That was where I came across this thing called Zero Cipher, which is such a cool name for such a not particularly interesting thing. But it's where numbers get so big that you start having difficulty processing zeros at the end of them. And that's something that happened in Germany. Was basically the inflation was so bad that people just lost track of how many zeros they had to put on the end of the cost of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that sort of
Cipher.
thing is why we use base 16 instead of base 0, or not base 0, base 2 when writing stuff down, because, yeah, you lose track of ones and zeros, especially when it's just zeros.
It's like people go like, is this loaf of bread, is that 1,000 or 10,000? Or how many zeros do I need? And you just start putting zeros on the end of numbers that didn't need zeros because it's a weird thing that happened. You know, I don't know. It's a bit like the confusion I get whenever I have to write out an American address, and I'm like, you live at 10,384 on your street. How does that work?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I'm also gotten confused by that.
I live at 5. I don't, but not far away. It's just one of those things. And also, like, you know, transferring currency to like yen or something, where, you know, 100 yen is like $1.
Yeah.
Yen.
But anyway, to return to the point that Ragdoll was trying to
How
make
dare you?
about Wonder Woman. Yeah, I can't imagine that. I mean, not really, but kind of being the case here. Like, essentially the big, quote-unquote, big bad factionless, but all the factions, because just evil, is just kind of an enabler. Just kind of going like, yeah, you do want this stuff. Just trying to cause chaos by just enabling whoever.
I mean, we have a world full of merchants. Could they be discreet?
Oh my god.
We've got a lot of merchants. If you wanted to hide as someone in this world.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I've had these like these names written down from when I was playing War Tales because I like those names and I want to do something with them. But the names like Fame and Fortune, which were like the merchant names for, you know, merchants in that game, for 2 of them. I wanted to do something with them, and now I'm just thinking like, that's fucking perfect.
Marvelous.
What do people want? Fame and fortune. We're not gonna be subtle. Subtle is for That person's right there. Those are the evil guys. But also, you don't know they're evil because you think they're just weirdly named merchants.
Yeah. This is a game. People have strange names.
Don't we have a god of wealth?
Yeah.
Do we?
Maybe that's how you can start to get an inkling that these people aren't quite what they say they are. Is that they slip up on their guise of the whole worshipping the whole god of wealth thing. They start to do or say things that don't seem quite right.
Yeah. They're slightly too invested in things for the whole idea of a neutral merchant. Who is because that's the whole, I mean, not the whole thing with merchants, because some merchants, exclusively sell to one side, but some merchants are we sell to one side, we sell to the other, it doesn't matter because money goes both ways, That's I believe, in my opinion, that's an entire trip. That's a whole thing of the two-faced merchant kind of deal. But the idea of they're trying to be that, trying to appear like that, but they're clearly not, because they're clearly invested in all these factions and all have their just slightly too invested in also in what you're doing. Trying to encourage these weird things that merchants shouldn't be encouraging. No idea how it would shape as a boss fight, because it does sound like just two people now.
The first thing I think is that they would theoretically be able to fight as good as any player character would, but there are two of them. They have all the equipment. They have all the spells or whatever abilities you have. But you fight two of them, and then phase 2, they fuse together or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Yeah, I can work with this.
Yeah. See, this is why I occasionally take a punt on the stupid ideas that pop into my head. Because sometimes it's maybe the truth is the MacGuffin, and I'm met with silence. And other times I'm like, we've got a lot of merchants.
And I'm immediately yes.
Yes.
That makes sense.
I never know what's going to hit, but if I say enough, this is the spaghetti tactic. For enough spaghetti.
For enough spaghetti, eventually something will stick. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I forgot about the whole fame and fortune thing. Wasn't it there was just a character called Fame? Or...
Yeah, it was just this random. I think it was a merchant, but I'm not sure. It was just called Fame, and another one in a different place who was called Fortune. Spelled weirdly, of course. Fame with PH and Fortune with.
Do that whole fantasy thing of, oh, this is just an actual name, but we put apostrophes in weird spots.
It's in War Tales. It's Fame, like that, and for.
See, I thought there was a character called Fame, and I joked about there being a Fortune.
Oh, that can also be the case. I
then,
don't remember. I've just got these two ones written down.
But then there was also another instance of that happening somewhere else in the game.
Oh yeah. Wait,
I can't remember.
I wrote that down.
I try and make a joke, and then the game does it as well.
Yeah, Fire and Flame, who are all both with PH. Fire. That was also okay, a thing when.
It's all very silly.
Fire like that. Lame.
Fire and flame, we carry on.
But yeah, you might have said the fortune one, but it just stuck with me.
Sorry,
I've gotten it written down on like sticking out in front of me.
Didn't want that to come across as like, I think you'll find that was my joke. No, it's just like I was trying to sort things out in my head.
Yeah.
As if it was a good joke. Either way, I'm regardless, game or me, I'm glad good things came of it. Good things shall come of it.
I mean, it's also fun because I was planning on like working Fame and Fortune into Project VF because I wanted to do something with those two so badly.
Fair
and
enough.
Now it's just this happened to be like honestly a pretty perfect place for it.
Turns out they're the super boss of the game.
Yeah, didn't expect that, but I'm kind of here for it.
How many times have we had enemies? This is at least the third, right?
It's the it's the third. Yes.
Yeah. So
I made Sexy Wizard, then I made Heroes Robots, and now it's Flame and Fortune.
Yeah. So we should only have one more before we have to get everything else on the wheel. So.
Okay, cool. Can't
Like
wait to get villains again next week.
Yeah, next. It's possible, but then after that, we'll have to go through everything else. So.
Then we have to go through characters the other.
Yeah.
Oh, this could lead to some very interesting what the heck happened here things, because so one of Dark's ideas from earlier was Moink and the Mimbles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Moink being god of wealth, joy, and charity. I mean, granted, there's nothing that says that Moink actually exists. It could just be the Mimbles worship a god that doesn't exist. Or it could be that Moink is like a persona that Fame and Fortune use, or something weird has happened and Fame and Fortune are like a corrupted version of it. I don't know. This is definitely a not something that you just stumble across in casual playthrough. This is definitely a extra ending or super boss or more with it.
I imagine like in your first playthrough, like again, Fame and Fortune, just these like weird little guys. They're just there. They're merchants. There are fucking dozens of merchants in this game. You're not gonna remember them.
Yeah,
but
well,
unlike a lot of merchants, they do travel.
Well, and then we've got the Mimbles, the merchants who are explicitly traveling all around. So it's just two more weird merchants, and they've all got weird names.
Yeah. It's like
three of them here are listed as Dim, Dum, and Derek.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's definitely like on your first playthrough, you're supposed to assume these are just other Mimbles that are going around the place. But maybe like the other Mimbles are, they know Fame and Fortune are not like them, even though there is no like real like what's the word for it? There's no like consistent like thing what the Mimbles are because they're all different, kind of.
Yeah.
It might also be a thing where if these are like traveling merchants, it could be a thing where as you like, okay, game mechanics wise, there are certain locations where it's like, okay, here's the shop area. Which shops are here, which Mimbles are here, varies. But Fame and Fortune are never with the other Mimble.
No. Like, there's always a little, like, Mimble spot in every area. But
Yeah,
fame and fortune, I
you've got
never
the
would
wizard
be Mimbles.
spot, so you've got the weird wizard door, and then you've got the Mimble spot where the collection of Mimbles show up or not show up. It's random. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not like random, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get it.
Variable.
But fame and fortune are always like they're they're always, there in your area, but they're never with the Mimbles because they're not part of the Mimbles, even though at first you're supposed to think that. Yeah, that's very fun. And again, I like that, fame and fortune have like probably this entire like, you can figure all this stuff out and you can have the super boss fight. But if you want the quote unquote good ending where you solve everything, you don't fight them. I don't know why, but that's just very fun to me.
Yeah, you either get the good ending or you get the hard boss fights ending, and they are not
Oh.
the same. Unlike in Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Well, actually, no, Breath of the Wild, if you go do everything, the boss fight is both easier and harder, which I find funny. Because in Breath of the Wild, if you do everything, the divine beasts will shoot lasers at Ganon and cut its HP. But then if you do everything with like Zelda's memories and whatnot, you get an additional phase to the fight. But also the divine beasts have shot lasers at it, so that first phase is easier.
I'm always a fan of boss fights that change depending on things you do outside of them. So I'm up for stuff like that.
It's
Although technically, if you want to, and speedrunners do this all the time, you could just get off the plateau, run straight to Ganon in your underwear, and beat him up with a stick.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's a boss in Elden Ring that's like mild spoilers for Elden Ring. The more bosses in the game you defeat, the more basically the more they can loot in the world, and that makes their fight harder. Because they basically come in after you and grab stuff. So, the more experience you have in the game,
or like
the harder they're gonna get. But if you race straight to them, they don't have much. So
there's, and I don't remember which one it is, one of the Metal Gear Solid games, Sorrow.
Yes.
Where it's the more enemies you kill, the more ghosts there are to give you a hard time.
Yeah. And if you do a pacifist playthrough, there's nothing. Which I think is neat. Maybe one day we'll do a Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 draw through. What did we do? Oh yeah, we did Bioshock, didn't we? Yeah.
Bioshock and then Bioshock, just in a different flavor.
Yes, we did Bioshock Infinite, then Bioshock Infinite again, but was actually Bioshock 1.
What a time.
Yeah. It's a series, apparently.
It's a prequel and a sequel. Somehow.
There was a, I don't think it's still going on, but just before the stream started, there was a video game presentation thing, E3-esque, announcing games and all that sort of stuff. and somebody was sort of restreaming it, and somebody in chat said, "Oh, it's a new Bioshock game, maybe." And they said, "How can there be a new Bioshock game? There's already infinite of them." And it's like, yeah, how do you follow up after whatever was going on in that story?
I mean, technically, there's more than one Infinity, but that's a maths joke.
Somebody did make the joke of Bioshock Aleph 1, which did make me laugh. So credit to whoever that was in the chat. That did make me laugh.
Yeah, well, there was a similar joke before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out because of all the naming schemes where it's like we're getting closer and closer to 3, but not quite there.
Yeah, the limit. Well, they did actually. Kingdom Hearts 3 does start with like Kingdom Hearts 2.9 or whatever it is, doesn't it? Like there's a prologue which they decided to call 2.9 or something. Just
yeah,
because it's self-aware. It has to be.
I mean, I should hope so, because if it's not, I don't know if that makes it funnier or sadder if they're not self-aware. Just
you don't have titles like 365 over 2 days.
I mean, that one there's a story reason for that, but it's one of those things of like, okay, but it's still stupid.
You can make story reasons for anything. That's how fiction works.
Yeah, but within game, apparently that's the number of days that the two characters, Roxas and Shion, are alive, essentially.
Oh, Shion, yeah.
But also, it's still a stupid title. In fact, most people I know, whenever we're talking about stuff like that, just call it days, because the number part is dumb.
Because you after thinking about it, you are dazed and confused. I just still love the fact that Shion comes from the number I with an X in it, and then your anagram. It's an anagram of X plus the number I.
Yes, which is additionally dumb if you... It's like, oh, it's imaginary. It's like, that's not what that means. That's not what that means.
I'll give them this.
Imaginary numbers exist.
I'll give them this. It is complex.
Yes. Well, you can say anything bad about the whole series.
Yeah. We got to maths anyway. Enough of that. I don't have anything else to draw right now.
You drew a good kitty.
Eventually drew something approximating.
Are you telling me you don't want to try and draw all of that mess of antlers on Death's head?
I want to. I don't think I should start now, is what I'm saying. Sorry, the one thing I was going to say was I was trying to think of how they would fight. Stick on screen. Trying to think how Life and Death would fight. And my first thought was that they would be very sort of graceful. One of those fights that's sort of almost like a dance, as it were. But then I thought, no, they should be different. I think Life is going to be graceful. Death is going to be feral. That's going to go for you. But then I thought, maybe it's the other way around. Death's patient. Life is erratic.
Yeah. I like it with it flip, with Life being absolutely feral and wild and Death being very graceful.
Yeah. Death's constant. Death's just always there. You know, it'll be there regardless of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Death is a persistence hunter.
Exactly. Speaking of Metal Gear Solid 3, the end. Yeah, so that was really the only idea I had for that, is that one of them would be wild and the other one would be very graceful. So yeah, that's an idea. Yeah, I'm interested to see where Fire and Fame and Fortune
I'm gonna have to work because I don't know what they're gonna look.
That's part of the fun.
I think the flying city is going to be a thing where like there's a boss either way. Because I think in the we fix everything bit, there's probably a boss that you have to fight because it's like we hecked up real bad type situation.
Yeah, there's, regardless of who you side with, there will be antagonism on the city. That's just going to happen. They're in a state of conflict.
Yeah, battle's gonna happen in a place where battles happen.
Wise words indeed.
Oh. Oh god, what if it's just a huge mistake?
What if it's just a huge mistake?
Are we talking about the project as a whole, or?
Yeah.
No, just like I'm thinking, like, so we've established that we've got like mutated wretched enemies where it's like things are mixing together, but most of them are sort of on the small side. I'm thinking in the we're going to fix everyone's mistakes things. It's because what breaks out is like, oh, that's big, and that's not. Nope, this is a crime against life, death, and very existence.
Oh, it is literally called The Mistake.
Oh wow.
You've really given yourself something to draw there, Ragdoll.
Yeah, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. I might just make a description of just horrifying concepts beyond belief.
I mean, at the risk of shooting myself in the foot, for those of you who are supporting me on Patreon, do remember that you have doodles.
I mean, do you want to doodle the worst chimera?
I mean, all I have to do is try and draw a cat and it'll happen.
Start with a cat, work in a little bit of horse.
Oh god, no.
And then we have a horror beyond our imagination.
Yeah, that would violate Twitch terms of service, probably.
I mean, all things considered, it might be like there are enemies in a couple games I've played where its base form is just sort of a gelatinous mass and it changes throughout the boss fight. That might be interesting.
Are we gonna go back to Orb?
Well, this kind of makes me think about what we were talking about for the Rotten from DS2. That the Rotten is just, a pile of corpses, and they're just working together by becoming a thing made of corpses. But you could do it with this just like, and again, I'm shooting myself in the foot here if I have to draw this. This sort of like web of interconnected just bits of creatures and people and all that sort of stuff, and it just like it's just like so weirdly mishmashed together that it can just, depending on which bits want to grip together and which bits want to extend, it can just transform into these different forms. And I can see this in my head, and it's very difficult to describe. But yeah, you could definitely have something that sort of transforms into different sort of shapes. It doesn't have to be necessarily gelatinous. It could just be that there are so many points of flexibility that it can just morph. It just has a variety. It's okay. This is going to be the weirdest like base point of understanding, but it's like the Transformers.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that, but with limbs, just like bits of biology stuck together that are jointed in certain ways that you can just.
I just imagine the Transformers, but it's human bodies, and it's the fucking most horrifying thing I've ever thought of.
It's the Transformers, but body horror. Why haven't people made this before?
Because it's awful.
I mean, to a certain extent, I'm sure people have, but also I don't want to watch that movie.
No. Oh my god.
Bet that's an idea draw if we haven't done yet.
Like the worst version of like, what if the cars and cars were like had human anatomy?
Yeah. No one's so about the Transformers. So now I have the name the Contortionist in my head, and I'm not sure if I like that more than the Mistake.
I like the Mistake as a name for like a big boss.
Yeah.
Just like imagine like seeing that pop up as like the name of the thing you're about to fight. Before you even see what the boss looks like, it just pops up like the Mistake. And it's
No,
either very funny or you're just like, oh no.
Due to the way that it's not, it doesn't pop up before you see it, but it pops up before you realize that you are looking at it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just, you don't know what it is you're looking at for a while.
You're looking at something, probably a pile of bodies, and you're just like, okay, this is kind of weird, and then, you
And then a
just see
name
it
pops up and
start
you're
to
like,
move and do the Transformers thing. And then the Mistake. God, I'd be fucking terrified.
nice. I think Dark will approve of this.
I think so too. This sounds very much into his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Oh god, he's also got doodles.
Oh no! Well, you're gonna regret reminding him of that.
Yeah, cool. That was what an idea to end on.
Yeah, he's
what a mistake to make. And on that note,
yeah.
we shall end the stream. I will be back on Tuesday with Neo. It's Neo. I can't really say much about it. I've played it for 2 hours, and most of that was in London, inexplicably. It's a game all about Japan. It starts in London.
Okay, interesting.
In the Tower of London, specifically.
At least you haven't had a Russian magician show up who's supposed to be dead.
Yes. Yeah, Chibi, you were mentioned in a Ragdoll stream. Like,
okay.
So don't. What was it? It's just basically along the lines of don't tell Chibi that this is happening. They'll get mad. And then the name popped up, and I was like, "Yep, okay, I get it." Yeah. I mean, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen in Neo. Maybe. Crow did say that this is more connected to reality, so there might be real people cropping up at some point.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me if they're pulling a lot from like Japanese lore, because a lot of East and Southeast Asian stories have just like, that's a real person, that's a real historic person that is now part of your fantasy setting.
Yeah.
That just happens a lot in their literature. Some of them even become gods.
Yeah. I like the idea that that would happen. Like, I can't think of an example. Like a religion started around like Robin Hood or something. Be interesting. Sorry, my brain went off on a tangent there. I'm gonna stop talking and end the stream. It's very warm. Have we mentioned that it's very warm?
It is very warm.
I need to open some windows. Thank you for coming along. Thank you for having fun times chit-chatting. And I think we're starting to get somewhere with how the story is structured.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think we're getting into the. I don't know how to have that sentence. I think we're getting into it. Let's just finish it there.
Yeah, we're the spaghetti is beginning to congeal.
You might want to double check your spaghetti recipe.
Look, I made a lasagna today. It was somehow overcooked and undercooked, and I don't know how.
Interesting.
It was the whisk technique, I'm sure. Anyway, thank you for coming to the stream. We're gonna end now.
Yay. Goodbye.
Bye.